What if the reason you always feel behind and constantly rushing isn't because you're bad at time management or lazy, but because we live in a modern society that's literally designed to privilege speed? Think about it. When was the last time you genuinely felt unhurried? You were doing something and you were so consumed by it without checking your phone or multitasking. Or maybe having a conversation without your mind racing to the next thing you had to do. It's a very rare thing today. And it hasn't always been like this. Our ancestors, for example, they weren't living in this constant state of stress and hurry. This is a symptom of our modern society. Because our whole system, political, economic, and social, is built on speed. You feel in a hurry not because you're disorganized or lazy, but because you're caught in a speed trap. It's a web of forces that make slowing down feel very difficult or even impossible. The current capitalistic system in most Western countries is built on performance and growth, and so it will always privilege more production, more revenue, and more consumption. This makes the speed trap systemic, fully integrated into the very structure of our modern life. So today I want to talk about three things: how the speed trap works, why escaping it feels impossible, and then at the end, ideally encourage you to start moving at a human pace and resist this speed obsession that's completely controlling our modern society. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is Hartmut Rosa's book, Social Acceleration. Rosa is a German philosopher and sociologist that talks a lot about this obsession of speed. And he makes the case that our modern society is based on speed and that everything keeps moving faster: technology, travel, communication, companies, etc. But unlike the past, the idea of moving faster doesn't make us less stress or make us save time. It creates the exact opposite effect, and this is where he highlights his acceleration paradox. We invent new things to save time, but in reality, we lose time. For example, the invention of the email was supposed to be much more efficient than postal mail, and it did at first. But then this efficiency gain has been absorbed by new demands. So now you have the new expectations of instant replies. So instead of gaining time, you lose time. And we can't blame technology. This is what he says. He says technology is only a tool that helps us reach certain objectives. But what sets these objectives is the whole capitalistic system. This, again, obsession of more. We need to do more production, more revenue, and more consumption. This same process is also happening on the social side, which Rosa calls the acceleration of social change. He argues that everything also on the social side shifts rapidly: traditions, values, politics, jobs, friendships, relationships, etc. Think about our great grandparents. They probably had one job, one family, and one neighborhood or community their entire lives. But nowadays, this isn't the norm. We're expected to travel the world, change jobs maybe once a year, have constantly new hobbies, go to new places, build new things. So even the social structure of life has been going faster and has completely changed. So the technical and social acceleration speed up the pace of life. So we try to cram more activities in the same 24 hours. So the result is that we multitask, we binge watch, we network, we hustle at work all at the same time. And this creates what Rosa calls a frenetic standstill. We're constantly moving forward, constantly rushing, but it doesn't seem that we're going somewhere meaningful. And this is the sad truth of the acceleration and the speed of our modern society, is that there's no correlation between going faster and improving your quality of life. It seems that we're going faster to stay at the same place, to not degrade our quality of life. And you can see it with inflation, for example. We're working, and even if we work more, we won't have more purchasing power. We'll have the same, if not less. And if nothing changes, the only thing that's going to happen is a collective burnout. And this raises a crucial question. If everyone is experiencing the same pace and the same speed, why don't we just collectively decide to slow down? Why does it seem that there is no alternative to this exhausting pace? To answer this question, I want to talk about another book called Speed and Politics, written by the French philosopher Paul Virilio. So Virilio makes the case that speed isn't just another constituent of our modern life. It's the primary mechanism of power and control nowadays. Because before, power came from owning land, resources, and military strength. But today, power comes from velocity, from moving faster, processing information faster, making quicker decisions, and adapting to any changes in the environment. And this speed logic is called dromology. And Virilio argues that this has become the main constituent of our modern life. So at first, you might think that dromology only applies on a macro level, for governments and companies maybe. So whoever launches the marketing campaign faster or launches a new product on the market faster, etc. But in reality, it also applies to us on a human level, on the micro level. Because if you don't comply, if you don't play the game with these rules, with this dromology theory or the dromology concept in mind, then you're completely excluded from the game. And then it becomes dangerous to your survival. Let me explain. In order for you to get the job, you need to keep applying for jobs. You need to be one of the first people to apply for the job. In the interview, you need to be very quick with your answers. When you get the job, you need to be very quick. You need to answer emails all the time, go to meetings, write memos, etc. You always need to be the quickest person to do things. And nowadays, the term fast and performance are being mixed up. If you do something quick, it can get confused. It can be perceived as good. So speed became a sign of quality, unfortunately. Obviously, this isn't without serious consequences. And Virilio here talks about the accident of speed, which is the idea that every new technology creates its own kind of accident. Like planes created plane crashes and ships created shipwrecks. Speed, or this obsession of speed, created the loss of human pace along with the reflective capacity that we have as humans to make things meaningful. Another accident of speed is the militarization of our everyday life. You see this trend on social media about optimizing every single detail in your life, from the way you eat, the way you breathe, the way you sleep. This is a military tactic initially. And we took it from the military in order to better comply with dromology, in order to be quicker and more efficient. Always living at this pace doesn't just exhaust you. It destroys every human capacity that could threaten power while making you the perfect consumer and worker. So how does this slowly happen in our daily lives? So the system needs you to keep accelerating and always in a hurry for a few reasons, according to me. First, hurried people make the perfect consumers. Because when you're hurried, you don't have the time to slow down and question your needs and make the distinction between false needs and true needs. You just consume. And you tend to consume things that will save you time and things that will make your life easier. So like use more Uber Eats or delivery apps in general. And you can see for yourself that nowadays entire industries exist because we don't have time to cook, to think, and to organize our lives properly. And since capitalism needs constant fuel and constant growth, the perfect situation for the system is to keep you in this hurried, anxious, rushing state. The state where you keep consuming in order to improve or fix the problems that were created by speed in the first place. And secondly, speed destroys any form of political thought. Not that we're revolutionaries, but still, it's important to have time to reflect in order to challenge the existing power structure. And when you're in a hurry, you don't have time to think, to reflect, to organize, to discuss, even to create, form new thought. You don't have time to do this. So this perfect environment for political thought is completely erased when you're living in a speedy society. Even think for yourself, when was the last time you sat with someone and discussed a political matter properly and voiced your opinion and heard theirs, etc.? It's quite rare for most of us. And the last point is that speed tends to make you economically desperate because when you're constantly rushing, you feel like you're losing the race against time. And when you take a corporate setting, slowing down feels like a suicide. It feels like you'll be completely excluded from the workplace. You can't slow down, you can't refuse meetings, you can't rest properly, and you can't just disconnect whenever you want to. You need to keep up in order not to lose, in order to keep your job. Otherwise, you'll be replaced. And this constant feeling of anxiety makes you accept worse working conditions because again you always feel that you will be or you can be replaced. So that's why it makes you economically desperate. You're desperate, you're doing your best to keep up with the pace. So before moving to the last part, I want to share with you one last thing. I don't want you to underestimate the impact speed has on us because it has extreme side effects on our lives and the quality of our lives. Because think about it for a moment. When you're always in a rush, you don't have at all any time for contemplation. Meditating on life, on your activities, experiences, and the person you want to become, thinking about what you do and what happens to you, and even thinking about complex ideas in general, letting thoughts freely flow in your head. You don't have time to do this at all. You're always interrupted by notifications, so your attention is scattered. You can't fully focus for a long period of time. You need to be everywhere at the same time. So you can't focus at one thing. You can't think or solve problems or think deeply about something without full attention, unfortunately. And in this speed society, attention is a very valuable but rare currency. And obviously, when you lose this contemplation capacity, you completely lose your creativity because the perfect environment for creative work is silence, long walks, boredom, letting your mind wander, daydream, writing, etc. And these activities, first, they don't generate any revenue, so they are useless. And second, they need time. You can't rush them. You can't rush a meditation. You need to be calm and you need to make time for these activities. So they are not compatible at all with the needs of the system. The last point I want to mention is that speed will eventually make you blame yourself. Because if you fail to meet the unrealistic demands of the system will always blame you. It will always be your fault. And if you can't work and maintain the same pace, it will always be on you. You'll assume you're weaker and less capable than everyone else. And even if you do your best and get exhausted or burnt out, it will still be your problem because you're not optimized enough. You haven't taken good care of yourself or you haven't rested well enough. So it's always going to be your fault. So you end up by blaming yourself instead of questioning and challenging the inhumane and unrealistic demands of the system. Here's what you need to realize. Your exhaustion, your anxiety, your feeling of always being behind, none of that is a personal failure. It's a normal human reaction to unrealistic demands designed to squeeze every ounce of speed, energy, and effort out of you. I'm all for working hard and being ambitious, but we also need the wisdom to tell the difference between working hard for something meaningful and being exploited for nothing. So what can we do about it? My advice to you is to reset your system. Start a personal revolution today. Make a firm commitment that you will start living slowly. And I know it sounds easy, but in reality, it's much more difficult because you need to be intentional about it. You need to integrate the right activities with the right tempo in your life. Otherwise, you just forget and you go back to your old ways and your old pace. In his book, In Praise of Slowness, a Canadian journalist called Carl Honoré says that finding the right tempo, the right pace for your life is a political act because you start a revolution on your individual level. So it's much more powerful than it seems. Take, for example, the slow movement, particularly the slow food movement. It's not just about eating slowly or eating without distractions. It's about challenging the whole efficiency, the logic of efficiency applied to food, and pushing other more healthy alternatives like nourishment, community, and quality over speed. Honoré describes it as a culture revolution against the notion that faster is always better. The slow philosophy is not about doing everything at a snail's pace. It's about seeking to do everything at the right speed, savoring the hours and minutes rather than just counting them, doing everything as well as possible instead of as fast as possible. This should inspire us to find the right tempo for each part of life: cooking, talking, working, even just walking. Finding a pace that pulls you back into the present moment and makes you fully aware of what you're doing. When you slow down, something extraordinary happens. The quality of your life improves. Your attention stops being scattered, your stress goes down, and you gain more control over your temper and your cravings. You become more mindful of how you talk, how you spend your money, and the choices you make day to day. Choosing slowness isn't just another life hack, it's an act of rebellion against the system. By living at a human pace, you reclaim the lost art of enjoying simple things and finding meaning in everyday life. Thank you for watching.